Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, hope you're all keeping well. Well, unfortunately no game for me this weekend, missing it quite a lot after being in the thick of it for the last 3 weeks, and I've got to say a massive thanks for all your support watching the videos. Now I'm back on the sport, it's absolutely fantastic. I was planning on doing a landscape video this morning because it talked to being foggy and I was going to go into the woodlands and do a bit of a foggy shoot, but fog must have blown away overnight because there wasn't an ounce of it. So anyway, I've sat here and listening to Talk Sport, totally jealous of all you guys that have been out there today or whatever on a game, currently out there shooting as I film this. And I thought I'd run through the more in-depth settings, in-camera settings. I've had quite a few questions in the last few weeks, not only about shutter speed, aperture, which focusing settings I use, but more of the in-depth white balance settings and the exposure compensation settings that I've mentioned in the videos. So I've got the old 1DX Mark III set up on the info panel, and just thought I'd run through that quickly with you and hopefully give you some idea of the in-camera settings that I use. So let's dive into the camera now and I'll show you the different settings that I use. Right, so we've got the info panel set up and I'll just work my way round. So obviously first let's hit that Q button. Now if I can, light permitting, I'll always be at a minimum of 1600th. If I can get it to 2000th, even better. Obviously that's at 2.8 and you'll see I'm on auto ISO, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, the slowest I would go really would be a minimum of if I can, 1250th really, because anything under that, and I have noticed that, over the last few years I've been shooting, the ball, or, when it's kicked, does look a little bit blurred and you get some slightly soft boots or arms, arms running. So yeah, I'll always be, if I can, at 2000th, but most importantly around 1600th. Obviously depending on the light, and I say, I'll always be in f2.8. So that's the exposure times, the shutter speed, 1600th to 2000 if you can get it. Right, onto aperture. Of course, we all love a depth of field so that player is nice and sharp, and then the stands and the crowd behind him, lovely and soft. And luckily, now I'm shooting on the Mark II 400, I can keep my 400 at 2.8, and it's, the players are pin sharp, still good depth. I don't know if you can remember when I was speaking about this just over a year ago. My old 400 was perhaps just losing a little bit of sharpness now and again, and I was having to just knock it up to sort of 3.2 or 3.5 just to keep a nice bit of sharpness, which obviously did give me that bit more depth, and then the crowd and the background, the backdrop to the player was just slightly more in focus. But yeah, at the moment definitely on f2.8 where I can. Now on the 70 to 200 I will probably knock that up to f5.6 or f5. Reason for that is goalmouth action. Usually when there's an attack or a corner, there's more than one player in your frame, and it's nice to have a little bit of depth and perhaps get the player with the ball or heading the ball or whatever, attacking, and the player next to him fairly sharp. So yeah, I'll always go on the 70 to 200, I'll have it at about f5, something like that. So yeah, so that's the apertures. Now then, let's scroll across. I'm always in auto ISO. Nearly all the time I'm in auto ISO. Perhaps night games I might not be because it'll fly up. But obviously you can, in camera, let's just go on the Q mode again. In auto ISO, let's just see if, let's go off that, come on off that. Now if I go to my ISO levels, let's see if we can find, do you know what, I'm not sure if we can. You can set, there you are, ISO speed settings. So you can set it in auto range. Obviously I've got it to 51,000 because I haven't really done a night game on this Mark III yet. But you can obviously set that to whatever you want. So for a night game, I'd probably set it to that. Now you're going to be nearly at that quite a lot on a night game, especially a low floodlit game, like your League One, your League Two, National League, which not a lot of you guys do shoot, and I've had quite a few questions about struggling with light. So I would always, I'm going to leave it at 6.4 actually, so we'll set that and OK that. So now my auto range is from ISO 100 to ISO 6400. I forgot this was a touchscreen, but something like my 5D4. Yeah, so that's that. Let's just go off that again. So yeah, always an auto, and the main reason for being in auto is because I can control, I'll show you this later on in custom functions, but I can control the exposure compensation by holding the set button and then scrolling the top wheel. So if I've got a backlit player and I want it to be a nice shadow, just the outline of him, of his head, just, you know, with that nice light lit area, I'll knock that right down and underexpose it, and it is as quick as that. You can see what you want, knock it down, shoot away, knock it back. So that's the main reason for being in auto ISO, is so that I can control the auto exposure, the exposure compensation nice and quickly. You know, there might be a crowd, half the crowd's in light, and then you've got the stand that's dark. You can knock that down so that you can only just see the fans, things like that. Like I say, and if the sun is behind you and you're shooting with the sun and the player's skin tones are really burnt out, again, I can just knock that down, a couple of stops, take another shot, test it, and then, you know, get a picture of the player or whatever. If the players are in the sun for 2 or 3 minutes, just knock it down while play's in it and then bring it back to 0. So that's one of the main reasons. Let's just put that back in auto. That's in auto, isn't it? Yeah. So that's one of the main reasons for being in auto ISO, that I can control the exposure compensation. Right, so hopefully I've explained that all right. So always, obviously, I shoot in what I've chosen the landscape settings here, and let's just go into the landscape, just because obviously you can have a user defined. Where are we looking? I think we're in this one, are we? No, yeah, there we are, like picture style. Obviously I can have a user defined one if I want, but I've just gone straight into the landscape because that gives me good colour. But I have obviously altered the settings. So if we go into them, hang on, what do we do? Press into info detail set. I've got my sharpness at a strength of 7. The less I have to do, if I'm editing manual, the less I have to do on the edit before I send, the better. So yeah, I always have the sharpness at 7 and the fineness, just got it at 3, and you can see threshold. And then the contrast, I always whack the contrast up quite a lot just to get a bit of depth, nice bit of colour, and saturation. Colour tones at 0 because I can control the colour tone quickly on the laptop myself. So yeah, that's how I do find that really does help. That putting the sharpness to 7. Excuse me. Yeah, so you can see the settings there, in there, and that's how I use. I really ought to copy these and put it onto the user defined and then set the landscape back to how it should be. But I think I just set this quickly on the first game I used it. But yeah, so that's my picture style settings. So let's go back to info. Now then, auto white balance. A lot of you guys shoot in auto. I do sometimes, but I quite like the cloud setting because I think it just gives me a little bit more depth and a little bit more colour. Than I sometimes find that auto white balance comes out a bit blue. I don't know about you guys, let me know in the comments, but yeah, I'll either shoot in cloud or in shadow, just in the shade setting, just to give me a bit more colour. Again, the more I can get set in camera, the less editing I have to do on the laptop, or if I'm remote, the less editing the guys have to do, especially with remote. The guys on the desk that I send back to are flat out, so the less they have to do, the better. So yeah, that's that one. So what else have we got? Let's scroll across. Right, white balance shift. Only really use this probably on night games. I think I mentioned last time I shot at the London Stadium. It's quite green, and so to overcome that greenness, I'll just knock it into the blue and a bit of magenta, and then I'll have it set at that. Then I'll obviously take a frame, test it, and then if I need to, I'll just alter it a bit. And that's how I'll leave the whole game. I know when I used to shoot down on the south coast at Eastleigh, under the floodlights there, it was really orange. You know, the floodlights were really orange. So I would just play about with this before the game started, just to get it set right. alter the colours a bit to suit, and then you know that you're about right for the rest of the game then. And yeah, so that's white balance shift, which I will use mainly on a night game. What else have we got here? Auto light optimizer, I never use that. I can control all the exposures and the modes myself, so that's always disabled. Again, let me know if you guys use any others. I've not really experimented with it, but yeah, so I don't really use that. Onto the flash compensation. Obviously hardly ever use flash, so that's pretty dormant to me, that setting, but just thought I'd run through that one. AI servo, always in AI servo. Unless I'm doing something like a static shot where there's a press conference or something afterwards, pre-game press conference, I'll go to one shot. Other than that, I'm always in AI servo, and that's obviously the optimum focusing mode for your tracking. To if the player's running to you or away from you, it will keep tracking that your subject. So that's that. Obviously, I'm in evaluative. It covers all areas really. Obviously your partial is for backlit. Your spot metering is for that certain subject that you want to focus on and get the light right for that. So, but I'm always in evaluative. It's the best of both worlds, evaluative metering, so I always tend to use that one. Again, let me know if you use any of the others. Obviously, always in high-speed continuous. This Mark III is, I think, I'm sure it is. Let me know if I'm wrong. I think it's 14 frames per second, up to 16, I think, on a good day. And then finally, into custom functions. Now, there's only really two that I use. Let's scroll down, the AF on button. I know a lot of you guys use back button focusing. I just cannot get to grips with it. My muscle memory will just not let me try back button, so I've never really used it. But yeah, so my AF, I use that for a second set of functions, second set of settings if you like, mainly sort of pan blur. So if we go into that, let's just see info, that's it. So we're into info set. Now, obviously in manual, I want to keep it in manual, but if I want to do a pan blur, I'll quickly press the AF button on the AF on button on the back of the body, and it'll give me a second set of settings. Let's just go back into that again, into that. No, not into there. Info, that's it. And so now it'll instantly move that down to a 60th. Obviously you can alter these settings. I'll start at a 60th on a pan blur and see how we get on. Obviously aperture F10, something like that, might go down to F8. But I do find that when I'm pan blurring, I always have a nice big aperture if I can. So that's that. ISO again is on auto, just got to watch it a little bit, but I'll keep it on auto ISO, and then so on. You can set all, obviously I've got white balance, look, I've got that set to cloud still, and so on. My tracking sensitivity, because I want to lock on to that subject, the pan blur, it's the subject that, you know, the player that I'm panning, I want it locked on, so I'll have that at -2 for the tracking sensitivity, so it's locked on instead of responsive. And again, the acceleration, deacceleration, that's at +2. Just to make sure it stays on the player, and then so on, and you can go on for ages setting them. So yeah, as you can see, as I press the button, the AF on button, it's instantly changing the settings. So I'll be shooting play, and then I'll grab a bit of a pan blur, hold my finger on the button, pan with the player, finish my shots, and then off again, and it's instantly back. And really handy that is. Or you could set that second lot of settings that you control on the AF on button for, like, if half the pitch is in real extreme light and it's going to be overexposed for your settings, and then half the play is going to be in shadow, you could quickly use that AF on button, and you'd have to hold your finger down, but then while the players are in that highlighted area of the pitch, you know, on a sunny afternoon or whatever, you've got your settings there instantly, and you know that you're going to be right. So yeah, it's a handy button to use to set to your second set of settings, if you like. But yeah, I'm certainly no good at back button focusing. And then just nipping back into the custom functions, the set button, like I mentioned earlier, I use that for my exposure compensation. Obviously you've got various methods that you can use the set button for, and then yeah, all I do is hold the set button down and move the top scroll wheel, and I can be in total control of the exposures. And finally, I just thought I'll just quickly run through the menus. So let's have a look. So what else have we got in here? I've got my clarity bumped up a little bit to +2. Again, just to save anything, just a bit less time for editing. What else have we got? Obviously I'm in large and no RAWs, so I just shoot in the large JPEGs. High ISO noise reduction, I've always got that flat out, so that mainly for the night games, just to get the noise down if the ISOs go sky high. 4-second image review, just to save on battery time a bit. You can always press the play button, can't you? So that's all right. On the tracking, let's just run through that quickly. So I use case 4, which is basically it's got a football emblem there, look. And then obviously into that. And then I'm on -1 for the tracking because I want to keep the focus point and the tracking locked on the player. So yeah, so that's the focus tracking, and then the acceleration, deacceleration, again, I've got it to -1 because I want it to be quite slow so that it stays on that player. So that's that. What else are we looking at? The focus points, I'll always be on the cross type auto focus points, and then what I will do, I think I've briefly covered it before, I will say you've got the referee coming in from the right hand side giving the player on the left a yellow card or something. I'll quickly scroll my single point, I'm on single point focusing by the way, I'll just scroll across to the ref so that I'll bring my single point across onto the referee, focusing on him, giving the yellow card to whoever. And then once that's all happened, I'll just quickly press the joystick and it takes your focus point back to the last position it was at. And obviously that would be back in the center. So yeah, so that's what I'm on, single point. So that's quite handy. What else are we looking at? Not sure what else is really in here that I can tell you about, to be honest. I always have my brightness quite high. I auto power off. I always make sure that that's well in excess of what the time it would be that I last press the shutter button. So yeah, that's at 30 minutes. And time and date obviously quite important. I've got, obviously when I was using 4 bodies, I synchronised them all so that they're almost identical to the second. Just for when you're sending off, all your images will be at the right time then. And I think that's probably about the lot, I would say. Or firmware, always keep an eye on your firmware. Quite often Canon release new updates. And yeah, that's about the lot, I think. I don't think there's much else there. No, I reckon that's about it. Job's a good one. Anyway, yeah, so that's mainly the settings that I use. One other thing, you just saw me playing with this. This new, the 400 that I'm kindly borrowing off Canon at the moment. Different, when I first put my monopod on, I was using that hole there, because on the older body that the older 400 that I've got, that was the thread sizes were the same, so I just automatically put it on there. But what it did mean was, when I set this up the first week I used it, I don't know if you can see, is it going to focus on that? Yeah, that thread was the other way round, and so it was in there. Well, it's amazing the difference that having your monopod there to there sits on your shoulder. So I turned, I'm sure all you guys have probably done this, but I was a bit steady, but you can unscrew that, just like, let's see if it'll focus on it. So you can unscrew that. So obviously that's the end that was out. Is it going to focus on that? Yeah, there we are, look. So that's the end that was out. So I've turned it round to have the, I don't know what that is, a 12mm is it? 10mm, 12mm, someone will tell me. So I've turned that round, and now it just gives me another couple of inch when I'm swapping from the 70 to 200 to the 400 or vice versa. Just gives me another couple of inch, and it does sit lovely. I'll put that in there, and it just sit a bit better. So when your body's on there, it just sits there nicely. Well, I always usually put it on my left side like this, or my right, whichever way I'm sitting on the pitch. And then obviously it just sits a little bit better than when it's there. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have done that. I might be a bit late to the party, but yeah. certainly with these newer lenses, there's 2 different size threads in the foot. So yeah, and then obviously most monopods you can swap it round. Some of them are retractable. I know my old Manfrotto, it would just press down. It was internal. There was 2 different sizes. But yeah, so just thought I'd let you guys know about that. And another tip as well. I've seen quite a bit of footage lately, or images of guys out on the pitch, and the old card readers are just swinging about on the wire. Pop a bit of Velcro on the back, and then Velcro it to your laptop. Then they're there. I mean, I think in the Bournemouth video I did a couple of weeks ago, I've actually got 3 card readers on the Velcroed on the back of my laptop. Does make it a little bit heavier. You might find that the laptop falls a bit, but yeah, I've got 3. And I say, because I'm using the Mark III at the moment, I need a CF Express card reader as well. So, and then I've got 2 CF card readers, just in case one fails or whatever during the game. And obviously on the side of my Mac there is an SD slot reader as well, so I'm covered then. But it's mainly the CF readers. Always take a couple of CF readers with you. I think I've got I must have 4 or 5 in my bag now. But it's also good if someone else has forgot theirs, you can lend it out or whatever. So yeah, bit of Velcro on the back of your laptop, and job's a good one. Well, just a quick video today. Sorry I haven't been at a game, but hopefully next week I should be out again. And I'm also keeping an eye on the weather now because it's coming into autumn. So for all the landscape fans out there, all the landscape photographers, you know, hopefully I should be out soon and getting a bit of woodland again with the colours changing now. I love autumn. There's some great colours to be had out there, and I'm keeping my eye on the trees locally, and they are just changing colour now. So I'm going to keep on the landscape and that as well as the sport. But I know you guys are kind enough and watch most of the videos that I shoot, so yeah, I really appreciate all your help. And I've got to say thanks again. Since I mentioned my Ko-fi page at Bournemouth, I've had quite a few coffees bought again, so absolutely fantastic, guys. And it's all going in the pot for a nice trip away or whatever. So yeah, I can't thank you enough for buying me a coffee on my Ko-fi page. Absolutely fantastic, guys. Brilliant. Really appreciate that. And I will thank you all individually on the Ko-fi page when I get a minute. But yeah, with there's been so many comments lately, and I can't thank you enough for commenting on the videos, guys, because it does help the old algorithm on YouTube. And I'm trying to keep up with the comments best I can and get back to you all, but I will do it later on. I'm going to sit down and go through them. So thanks ever so much for all your support in general, guys. Can't thank you enough. It's absolutely brilliant. Really appreciate it. Right, I'm going to go and put TalkSport on again and catch up with the football, and hopefully be out again next week. Thanks ever so much for watching, guys. Take care. Catch up soon.